Hey guys, and welcome to Beating the Press podcast, your weekly podcast where we talk about all things football. If that's your type of thing, why not subscribe, like the video, comment, we reply to everything. As always, today I am joined by my wonderful co-host, Ty, if you know him. And of course, I'm Kristian. And today we are going to be doing a podcast on the season that's just passed, a season review. Obviously, Jurgen Klopp's just been named as the Barclays Premier League Manager of the Year. He's also been, is it the LMA Manager of the Year? Yeah, so there's a little bit of controversy around there. Obviously, us being Liverpool fans, there's no controversy at all. But there we go. We're going to discuss that. We're going to discuss the season in general as a whole, the good, the bad, and everything in general. So we might as well just fly straight in with Ty. Jurgen Klopp, Manager of the Year on all accounts. Do you agree? Disagree?
Yeah, I mean, for those, everyone, by the way, for those of you that watched the last podcast or listened to it, we obviously mentioned what we had the question was, who's your Manager of the Year? We both went Klopp and I because of what he's achieved this year in terms of playing every single game, getting to the 3 cup finals, taking the Premier League to the last game of the season. It's unprecedented. It's not going to happen again. It just won't. I mean, it's just nigh impossible for them to realistically be with a chance of winning all 4 as well. Like, what was it, 19th of May when we last did it? It was just absolutely ridiculous. So I think most people with a bit of iota of common sense and knowledge would say, yeah. I mean, I've heard some of the shouts for Eddie Howe. Yeah, Guardiola absolutely has won the league, but I think as a whole, I don't think anyone can knock and disagree with the Jurgen Klopp. And I think Alex Ferguson summed it up quite well when he handed the award over and he said, "This is agony, absolute agony." And he said, Jurgen Klopp. So he knew, do you know what I mean? And that's from him. And but there's a lot of appreciation as well for what he's done. And even Gary Neville, I think, mentioned it as well for what he's done and for with his resources and when he's competing against who he is competing against, which is effectively a state, to get team that far. And obviously we've played each of the 3 times and we are the only team to beat, Man City. We've drawn twice and we beat Man City as well, so they didn't get to beat us this year. So I think it's fair. I mean, obviously not Guardiola what he's done. I mean, I think both of them deserve a huge amount of credit, and both teams deserve a huge amount of credit because. And I've heard it a lot now after Man City have won, and there's none of that gloating. It's the fact that both teams have realised that they push each other to levels beyond levels that they didn't realise they could achieve and reach. I mean, 90 plus points season on season. Do you know what I mean? Take last season out of the way because that didn't matter. That's like you take your 6 defenders out, you've got no chance. But 90 plus points season on season, I think to get it, I think both deserve a huge amount of credit. But yeah, just go back to your original point, the question. Sorry, absolutely, yeah.
Can I just be devil's advocate? Because obviously no one's going to be devil's advocate here. I agree with you and everything that you just said. For me, it's Jurgen. But yeah, for the reasons that you just stated, Liverpool should never be on a level to be able to compete with Manchester City. It just shouldn't be happening. But the fact is that they are pushing them to the limits. They can't afford to drop points. But just
to come in 1 point, I saw something on Twitter today and it just made me realise like what we have with this manager. I think it was 7 years ago, might be 6 years ago. So 7 years ago to this day, Stoke beat us 6-1 away from home, and we finished sixth in the league in that year. I think it was.
Yeah,
and I think you've just got to appreciate and understand. I get the disappointment on Sunday, absolutely, because it felt like it was 2-1 and it's flipped. It's gone. That's football. It can happen.
Yeah, if you look at it,
cherish these moments. Yeah, I just thought. Sorry to jump in there.
No, you're right. You think of the trajectory of the both teams. Man City have been on a constant upward incline, and Liverpool have just kind of went, a trajectory where it's met them in such a short space of time. We should never have been able to catch them in that amount of time, considering the resources that they had gone into Guardiola's round. But again, being devil's advocate, I get the argument that Premier League Manager of the Year is probably the more debatable of the two. LMA, I don't think anyone can argue because that's the sum of the whole.
Yeah.
Premier League, there's argument for Pep Guardiola, of course. It's an incredible achievement to hold off Liverpool, but is it really incredible when you've got unlimited resources? The other one is obviously Thomas Frank from Brentford, Eddie Howe, but again, he had half a season. So I would say Thomas Frank would be more of an argument. Any others that you may have thrown in there?
I disagree with Thomas Frank. I don't think he, excuse me, I don't think he's done all right. I don't think he deserves to be in the conversation. I think Eddie Howe, absolutely, regardless of, you've got to take a step back and look where they were when he took over. Mm-hmm. They were like 6 or 7 points off relegate, safety. They were, people look at Newcastle now and think this was Newcastle all season now. They had no team spirit. They were a broken club, a broken team. There was conversations about, if they go down this year, they can come back and then they can challenge. So they'll put like 3-4 years and then challenge for Champions League. Mm-hmm. Take that out the window. Now it's probably 2 years. You know what I mean? So the fact that it's kept him up, and I think his recruitment in January has been absolutely brilliant. I mean, there was conversations about Newcastle getting players like Dele Alli or Van de Beek or Jesse Lingard, but they went with Dan Burn, Matt Targett, Chris Wood, proper seasoned Premier League players who know that will get stuck in a fight. We saw what happened with Dele Alli and Van de Beek going to Everton. I don't think they played a game for the last 8 games. So do you know what I mean? That just shows that absolutely made the right decision. And Jesse Lingard, I don't know what happened to him, but no, I think Eddie Howe absolutely deserves a huge amount of credit for what he's done at Newcastle. And I think not just the team, I think lifting the whole club.
Yeah, I'm looking at the league table now, and obviously they finished 11th, which is absolutely ridiculous from where they were. Obviously, looking at Crystal Palace as they finished 12th. May not have probably finished as high as what they might have deserved, considering Newcastle were above them. But at the end of the day, you generally do get what you deserve with the Premier League table. Is there anyone else that stands out that maybe is in with a shout?
I think he deserves this manager. I think deserves a huge man. I think he's up there, one of the best in the world, and Antonio Conte for what he's done with Tottenham Hotspur. I mean, let's not beat about the bush. I mean, when we started, we had a common thing about it. It's Spurs are going to be very Spursy, and he's got that away from him. Do you know what I mean? At the Norwich game, there was a slight, he thought maybe something happened, but then they're 3-0 up and he's completely killed the game. Arsenal game is absolutely dominated. Do you know what I mean? 3-0. He's such an elite manager that I think Tottenham Hotspur are so lucky to have him. And for what he did to get them into the top 4 is pretty impressive. And I think him and Howe are the other two that I think can get an absolute, they should get some serious recognition for what they've done. And it was interesting, Conte as well at the end, he said, in all the titles and everything I've achieved in my career, this is my biggest achievement to get Spurs in the top 4. He said the league, the teams that he's played against and everything, combined, the teams that were directly up against, like Arsenal, United, West Ham were there for a bit as well. Do you know what I mean? So there's been a lot of competition there for him, and he's got through, and he wasn't able to get all the players that he wanted to get as well in terms of recruitment. So he's had a lot of success in a very short space of time, and I'm really looking forward to see what he does moving forward, because I think they could be a real threat for the top 2. Well, I still think there's a bit of a gap, but I think they could be a threat to Chelsea to sort of that 3rd place. I know Chelsea's takeover's just come through as well, but I think that 3rd spot's going to be real. Just the fact that Conte, I think, is a better manager than Tuchel.
Yeah, that kind of goes on to my next point. Conte really hasn't committed. He doesn't seem like he's fully 100% committed to Tottenham yet. Did he sign a 3-year contract when he first arrived?
I think, was it 18 months? But generally he sort of like stays for about 2 or 3 years. And
he still doesn't. It still doesn't seem like he's fully. He'll give us everything while he's there. However, season down and clubs are looking for managers, he doesn't seem to have set himself in stone. Right, I am going to be here. This is going to be my project, so to speak. Do you think there's any trouble in him leaving?
No, I think the reason why he left Inter was because there was a breakdown in his budget. Basically, he wanted more money, and Inter lied to him. I think with Spurs, he sort of knows where he is, but getting Kulusevski and Bentancur certainly sort of helped him. And the fact they've got Kane and Son already. And I think one player who I think has been average for a long time, and Conte has turned him into an absolute player now. And I'm surprised he's not in the recent England squad. Is Eric Dyer? Yeah. I'm really surprised he's not made it. And I think he's improved massively, especially with the 3 at the back as a central 3. And I think Ben Davies as well on the left hand side of a back three. I don't think he's good enough for a fullback in the Premier League because he's not great going forward. And you know, you can compare him against other great left backs in the league. He's quite short. But as an outside centre half in a back three, I think he's got all. I think his profile fits perfectly for that position. And then obviously we've got, you know, I think the wonder that Conte. And you've got the best manager in the world if you're playing three at the back, and Conte will give you all the little detail of where to go. The amount of times you'll see him step into midfield as well because he's comfortable with the ball and get involved in playing the final third. I think it's really impressive. So there's been a lot of little tactical adjustments and I think there's been a bit of a mindset change from Spurs as well.
Yeah. So obviously we'll go. You did mention the England team there, so we will go into a little bit onto the England team a little bit later. But like you, Dyer, I've been really impressed by him this year. So just going on to the overachievers of the year. You know, obviously we mentioned I think Brentford have done well to get up to 13th. You know, I'm not necessarily saying that Newcastle is an overachievement. You know, you'd think there and thereabouts, would you not? Like West Ham, obviously, they pushed on for a bit. Obviously, they fell short because of Europa League. Arsenal, some were saying that they should have been 8th, around about 8th, 7th. But, you know, that's all about setting your targets, isn't it? For a club of Arsenal's size, 5th should be the minimum of what they're expecting. So I was just wondering on your overachievers of the year.
I think you can't look too far past Newcastle. So saying you've got all that money in January doesn't always work out, and the stuff that they've done there, absolutely. I think Crystal Palace will be brilliant as well because I think a lot of people thought Patrick Vieira would be the first manager to go. If you think back to August time, and he was a favourite for the first manager to go. So I think what he's done with Palace and the way they're playing some really good football as well. They've got an identity now. They've moved away, and I thought Steve Parish. I thought it was really interesting when we heard it. I heard him speak towards the start of the season where he mentioned we need to get away from the sort of scraping to stay up every season because it's not sustainable in the long term. Because at some point we'll get there. We've got to change our way of playing. We've got to get a manager we believe in and sort of think long term. Getting Vieira in, you know how he plays. He plays through the thirds and he's got centre halves that want to play out the back. He's got players in positions that want to play the way he plays and fit the profile. So moving forward, I just think I'd be excited if I were a Palace fan as well. You've got Zaha obviously wanting to, you know, he seems to sort of settle now. Conor Gallagher's going to be a big blow. I'd imagine he'll go back to Chelsea and they'll.
I can see that, yeah.
But I think the stuff that he's done for, you know, the rest of it, they've obviously finished off beating Man United at the end of the season, but you know, Man United, I think it's been a pretty brutal season for them. So I think Palace probably, you know, if we look back now from the start of the season, I'd say Crystal Palace.
Yeah. The underachievers, and there's been a couple. So I'm gonna narrow this down. You can feel free to add any, but I'm gonna go with you know, you've obviously got Manchester United who've had quite a horrific season, change of managers, I believe 3 times during that period. We've got I don't know whether Leicester managed to pull it together towards the end of the season, but you know they're there and thereabouts where you'd expect. It's kind of had a season. I don't know what that word is, but it's a season. We've got Villa. You know, probably maybe expected a little bit more from Stevie when he came in. Maybe they had that new manager effect. Obviously, it's going to be a lot more questions asked of him next year. Chelsea seemed to fall away, but I wouldn't necessarily say it was a bad season for them because they, you know, got to 2 cup finals or penalty kicks away from winning 2 trophies. And then obviously for me, you've got Everton in and amongst there with Man United, and I'm going to go with just Norwich for being absolutely brutal. Is there any more that you would add in there, and just give me your biggest?
I think you summed it up quite well there. When you said underachiever, I just instantly zoned into the Northwest, Everton and Man United. Yeah. 2 of the biggest clubs in the country, and they've been an absolute embarrassment to their fans and the league. So you talk about the player, I think the players have got to have a look at the whole thing's a mess. But them 2, absolutely. I think it was interesting to sort of hear some of the praise and the credit that Lampard was getting. I just thought, I don't know, because he took over Rafa Benitez and they were 16th, and they're 16th now.
They took over Derby when they were 6th. They ended up 6th. They did go to the
thing. Nothing. He hasn't done anything. Yeah. It's like he's getting this credit for mediocrity. Do you know what I mean? He's obviously got a couple of results. I mean, they got a couple of late winners where they didn't deserve to win the game. You know what I mean? So they've had quite a bit of luck, and it just seemed to go for them. I think Everton they need clear out of some absolute deadwood in that team, and just some really bad players. I mean, I actually can't believe there's a player that he signed in January, and I can't believe he hasn't been absolutely hammered for that. That's Dele Alli.
Dele Alli, yeah.
How the fuck did I say? I was going to swear loudly, but I just made sure the kids wouldn't know. How did Spurs get 40 million? I think was just short of 40 million for Dele Alli, and how did Everton's board think this will be a good investment after all the brilliant investments they've done in the last 2 years where they spent $500 million on bang average players? I'm like, yeah, Lampard will go with you, we'll get him in. I
wouldn't pay 4 million. I wouldn't pay 4 million for him.
I won't pay £4 for him at the moment.
Mind you, he did have a decent game. I can't remember what game it was. It might have been one of the last against Palace. Yeah, he had a decent game on there. But I wouldn't pay 4 million for Dele Alli. I really wouldn't. And I'm with you with the Frank Lampard thing. I think that any manager worth their salt would have more comfortably got them out. Rafa would have got them out of that. But it's the fans were already against it. Whereas, his job was to effectively go in there, keep them up, and reunite the fan base with the club. And if you want to argue with it, you can say he's done that. He's kept them up, and scraped up, and obviously the fans seem to be behind him. But the fans are so fickle in the sense that it's.
Can you hear that?
I can.
Might have to cut that out.
But that's fine. It happens. This is one take. What was it? One take Wednesday.
It is one take Wednesday. So, listeners, if you hear that's my daughter getting torn off by my wife because she won't go up the stairs.
So
smoothly moving back on.
So Frank, he has reunited the fans, but again, fans are very fickle. It's not how you should judge your club. You think of the manager that was going to come in midway through the season. He was already out before he came in, and that was the guy after Rafa. I can't remember what his name was, but it was spray painted on the wall. We want him out, and he never actually got in the job, so they were already set against him, set in the ways, and they were already for Frank. So for me, I can't see that working. He is going to go in there. I don't know if he's going to have much of a budget next season, but he is kind of used to that with Chelsea. So we'll get to see how good of a coach he is, and how good the people are behind the scenes who are going to be working at Everton. But to be honest, I'm not holding much hope for them next year. I don't believe that they'll flirt with relegation as severely. However, I don't believe that they will be in the top half of the season.
I think, I'm with you. I think he'll get found out. I think the Chelsea obviously took over Chelsea. I think he got an easy ride with Chelsea because he already had academy players. I mean, Chelsea had a brilliant squad when he took over. They didn't need a huge amount of investment, do you know what I mean? So he's obviously gone in there, and Everton need a lot of investment, you know what I mean? But they've had so much before. They just need to get in a lot of deadwood, and they need a lot of big improvement now they want to do and play. Because it's been in there for over half a season, and you still wouldn't say how Everton play. Do you know what I mean? Counter attack absolutely fine, or when they're playing against the better teams, and they're just sort of low block. I mean, that's the easiest form of coaching and getting a team to play. But Chelsea's second season, he struggled. I think he'll struggle next season again. Do you know what I mean? I think for them will come a point where fans will be like, well, he kept us up last season, but I think it's time for a change. And you can sort of see that conversation happening, and he'll get another gig somewhere down the road. And I think we're saying that about Gerrard. I think Gerrard's got the similar questions to answer as well.
Yes,
you know what I mean? So we're obviously big Stevie G fans, but absolutely, I think he's got. If we're putting those questions against Lampard, I think absolutely putting the question against Villa as well.
Yeah, you bang on it, especially with the way that the era is coming, and with a lesser team, so to speak, and he's done what he's done. So yeah, you are right. But before we move on to the projections for next season for the teams, who is the bigger disappointment season-wise, Everton, or do you think Man United? Or do you think Everton have just gone too far that they're kind of like Leicester?
Yeah, I think it's an interesting one, that Everton, Man United. I think the arguments can be made for both, but for me, I think Man United. I just think for what they've had and what they've done, and obviously Solskjaer was there when they got Ralph Rangnick. And I actually think Ralph Rangnick spoke so much sense in his interviews. The fact that his teams are playing bad, he's obviously not, he's obviously got to take some responsibility for that. But I think he's identified that there's a lot of bad players and a lot of bad apples in there that he needs to get rid of. Do you know what I mean? So I think Man United will be worse, but I put the blame squarely on the players, not on the manager, put on the players. And where he's finished and whatnot. I think the Ten Hag, I think we don't know. I think there's got to be a lot of players. I'd be interested to see the makeup of that team. I think it's interesting to see that Wan-Bissaka's been told he can leave, and I think that was he's obviously a player that we identified earlier, saying he's not. You want to be a top team, you need your fullbacks, you have probably your most important positions, and you can't have a fullback who gets scared in the final third and doesn't through the ball, which Wan-Bissaka does. So. I think he'll be going. I think there'll be some changes. So it always happens, doesn't it? In the close season, you always be like this. I think the same happened last year. It was like, oh, Chelsea, Man United squads are brilliant, better than Liverpool, and they started knocking Liverpool. And it's the same happen now. You'll get like crazy season, won't you? And people just spouting absolute rubbish. But oh, Man United can buy this player, this player, this player. Chelsea can get this player, Spurs. Do you know what I mean? And it'll all happen, but. Generally, the two best teams will be the two best teams for the next few years as well, and keep battling against you. But yeah, so go back to your question. Man United for me.
Yeah, so obviously we've done the podcast, the previous podcast, and we did our predictions, and I mentioned Leeds United, and I couldn't have been more wrong on that case. It seemed like they were the ones that seemed like they wanted it the most, and they came through in the end, which I'm absolutely buzzing about. Burnley, again, they constantly flirting with relegation. I think it was their time. I really do worry for them for the coming years. I a lot of their players are out of contract. I can't see them coming straight back up. They owe out a lot of money, so I can't imagine that they're going to be spending. They need a manager like Sean Dyche to perhaps keep them afloat. I don't, however, think that he would have kept them up. He would have maybe given them a bit of a shout, but it's arguable again. Watford and Norwich City, they're in championship and a half. They're not quite Premier League level, but they're kind of too good for the championship. So I think they will potentially come back up again. But what surprised me, other than we've obviously discussed Everton, how close Southampton came to relegation. The slip. It looks like they just got enough points just to keep them out of that. And it's dangerous, that, because how you finish the previous season is usually how you start the next season. So I think they could struggle next year unless they start to bring in a few players. What about yourself? Obviously, your Leeds, Bradford area.
Yeah, so obviously got quite a few mates with Leeds and absolutely over the moon. I wanted Leeds to say it because obviously I work in Yorkshire, I work in sport in Yorkshire, and I've been Leeds. You want as many clubs as you can in the Premier League. Obviously, you want Huddersfield to beat Forest. Sorry, Forest fans, and Huddersfield to get into the Premier League as well on Sunday. But yeah, no, I thought Leeds surprised me because I genuinely thought. For those of you sort of follow me on Twitter, I actually put, when I saw the Newcastle side against Burnley, I said Leeds only need a point. Because I saw that Newcastle team, I thought that Newcastle team would beat Burnley, and they beat them comfortably. I know it was 2-1, but I think they were 2-up, didn't they? And then Leeds obviously scored, and I thought they played. I watched the highlights back, and for a mate who went there as well. They were good. Do you know what I mean? And they quite rightly got the win that they deserved, the performance deserved. So to keep them up, I think is absolutely huge, because I do think they've had quite a bit. They've been really lucky with injuries. I don't think Bamford's played about 5 games. You know what I mean? That's playing the whole season without your main striker for a team that's and Jesse Marsh. I think he's come across really well since the time he's been there. And he's sort of quite a few of the Leeds fans that I know. They're obviously so much in with Bielsa that they couldn't see. They couldn't see anything but Bielsa, and everything was Marsh's fault. That he came back and stuff. So I think I'm glad he's kept him up. Moving forward next season, he did say 3 months. It was just about keeping him up. So it's not necessarily the way I want to play football. He's now going to have a pre-season. He can get some players, and I know he's going to get. There's rumours as well. Looks like he's going to get Arneson in from Leipzig, and the American midfielder. So he's already thinking sort of new players as he moves ahead. So yeah, that's going to be really good. And getting Calvin Phillips back as well, obviously playing as well, I think that's important, and probably helped them get the result they deserve. But no, I'm really glad they're staying up. And like you, I think Burnley sort of done. They've done. I think it's good to get the Burnley the nicest possible way. I'm just bored of Burnley. I think get a proper club in here.
So Ty, as you know, we done a fantasy. I don't know. Well, I don't know if you know. I don't know if you forgot, but we did a fantasy football right at the beginning of the season. I don't know about you, but every year I have every intention. I sit back and I think, what teams are going to be good? I look at YouTube videos and I think, yeah, I'll go with what they're suggesting and all that kind of stuff. But I never really ever make it out of the first month, and I've not let myself down again. I've done it exactly again. Yeah. So do you want to inform the viewers, the winners, the losers, where we finished?
So yeah, I think we had 22 joiners. Just to give us a recap of, and if we're wrong, please let us know. Pull us some snippets from that podcast. We had top at Christmas, which was Alex, and we owed him 20 quid. We had top at the end of the season, which was 50 quid, which was Alex again. So that's 70 quid we owe him. We had £10 for bottom of the table, which I was kind of hoping we would be, because I've not looked at the team forever. But that's Chris Ledbetter, so we know him, so you can give him that as well.
Chris Ledbetter. How has Chris Ledbetter managed to finish bottom behind us?
Because I think what he might have done, I think if you make so many transfers, you could get minus points. And I think we put it in the rules, so we've got to give whoever it is bottom of tenner. But I think next season we've got to be a bit more savvy, because, you know, a tenner's a tenner. You never know. People as transferring Salah in and out just to get those minus 4 points.
Exactly. So, I think he's done it on purpose.
yeah. We know Chris. Yeah. What is it? A couple of pints for him? Maybe happy days.
That's Flair's money, that.
Yeah, exactly. So Chris is owed a tenner. Alex is owed 70 quid. The rest of the year, mid-table, mediocrity, nothing. I know we got a tweet from a guy saying he won a cup competition in the fantasy, but we never mentioned anything about cups. It was just in the league. It was great that you're interested, but if you look back, it was just the league. It was top, bottom, top in Christmas, and obviously, you know, bottom. So so Alex, you won 70 quid. Chris, you won £10. To collect your money, we needed to type in the chat at the bottom, BTP Army cash monies. Okay, and if you've got that as a secret code, let us know. We'll get in touch with you. We'll message you on Facebook or something. Trust us. Trust the two people who we actually know in real life in the league to have won it. So we can't even get away with not paying them. So we're going to have to get in touch. So yeah, so that's the league. So next one, BTP Army cash monies in the chat box down below.
You know the best thing about it though. The best thing about it is this proves whether they actually watch it all the way to the end.
That is, yeah. So if they don't watch it, you don't watch it all the way through. I ain't going to give no one no reminders. Okay, because I want to be out 40 quid. Because we've got to know it.
You've got 30 days to collect.
Yeah. So you know what it is. This is the episode. We might put a little thing in the heading of the podcast just to give you so we're not going to be complete twats about it.
Of course we will.
So yeah, BTP Army cash monies in the chat box. Let us know and collect your money. So we've got the old biggest club competition in the world on Saturday. Liverpool against Real Madrid, and I'd probably call it the perfect European final with two teams that sit on who had class as European royalty. You know, when you think of top teams in Europe, you think Liverpool, Real Madrid. You know, you look at numbers, you look AC Milan would probably throw in there as well. And they're the ones that get the finals, the winners. So really, really looking forward to it. I think Liverpool players, I think the fact Fabinho will train, so that's good. I've heard rumours Thiago did a bit today as well, so there's a chance of him playing. I think if Thiago plays, I'm so confident with his. Super looking forward to it. So we thought we'd have a quick 10-minute convo around the old preview. So I'll kick it off by asking you a question. Are you nervous?
You know what? I wasn't nervous, but as the days draw closer, I get more and more nervous. As soon as the final whistle went against Manchester City, I was like, yes, I don't want to play Man City again. First and foremost, because I can handle losing to Real Madrid. You know, as painful as it is, I can handle that. I just don't like the thought of being second best to City. And, you know, if they beat us in the final, you'd have to hold your hands up and be like, right, our best is not good enough. They're still there. But now there's that element of doubt just because there's a point between us in the league. And obviously we've managed to do what they can't. But then I sat down in the cold light of day and I thought about Real Madrid's strengths. compared to what we already know about Man City. Again, Man City have not beat us this year. We're the only team that have beat them over us. So I thought about Real Madrid's strengths, and it keeps me up at night thinking of Vinicius Jr. And Trent Alexander-Arnold. Obviously, we know Trent is the best right back in the world. He is, as much as his attacking play far outweighs his defensive lapses. And I don't even want to, for those of you that are listening as opposed to watching, them speech quotations, he has been absolutely brilliant this year defensively. He's covered when other people have been caught out. He's bailed Liverpool out plenty of times. But that is the one worry that I have. Sometimes he gets a little bit too confident in his centre-backs that they're maybe going to help him out a little bit more, and he maybe might relax a little bit. That's the only complaint that I have with Trent. Not his defensive ability, just that youthful naivety, I want to call it. So that's the thing that keeps me up at night. Benzema, obviously, how long has he been, disregarded as a number 9 for so long? And I do feel like, we can handle him, but we will have to be on our top game. And obviously they've got an unbelievable midfield, it's constantly underestimated. Their defense is obviously where I think we can get at them. That's, our attack versus their defense. That's where I hold the most comfort. But the rest of it, it's touch and go. So I don't know about yourself, but I'm getting more nervous as
like you. I think I've watched it and I thought. I watched the Real Madrid Chelsea game in Ibiza, the second one with a lot of locals, and they were going mad with Real Madrid. But Real Madrid didn't deserve to win that game. They were comfortably second best. They didn't deserve to be Man City. They were comfortably second best. They've had moments in those Champions League to get through. The Man City game was just absolutely ridiculous because Man City should have been out of sight. The biggest, I'm confident with our team midfield because I think that we will destroy them on the turnover in transition. Because if you watch the Man City game and the Chelsea game in transition, when they had the ball in the turnover, the midfield was so slow in getting back. Modric and Kroos and Casemiro were brilliant when they've got the ball, but on that turnover and having to sort of defend getting in behind sort of in between the pockets when our players dropping there, especially with Sadio Mane dropping in there. Luis Diaz, I think, is going to be a huge threat as well. Salah now at his fit, he can play. But getting Thiago for us to have that bit of creativity in midfield. Yeah. Henderson and Fabinho. I'm confident, and I think even I'm confident with our defence. The only question I think we'd have would be whether it be Konate or Matip, and I'd probably play Konate against Vinicius' pace, and that's the only reason I'd play Konate and not nothing else. Do you know what I mean? So I think across the board, yeah, absolutely. And if we look at the 2 recent games they've had against Chelsea and Man City, they've been comfortably worse. They've just managed to get they've played enough in little pockets to win in the game, little moments. So yeah, it's it's. If Thiago plays, I'm confident. You know what I mean? And we're not going to put anything on it to say we're going to win this or that. But yeah, I'm very confident.
It's like you were saying there, you are confident in a sense that, we've held our own against Manchester City on every occasion this season. Maybe it was a game or, game and a half where they were comfortably on top, where we maybe had to hang in there, but we didn't quite, we weren't overawed by it. Chelsea, I think we've been the dominant team on at least 2 of the 3 occasions that we played them this season, but, they were always tight games. So when you think of those 2 and how dominant that they were against Real Madrid, it should, it doesn't work like that. But if you think of it like that, you feel like we should be comfortable. However, if you think of the teams that Real Madrid have played on this route, this has got to be one of the hardest routes that any team has ever had to get to this final. Did they knock out PSG, Man City, Chelsea? I can't remember what the group was like, but we equally had a hard group and then kind of eased off on the knockout stages. However, they have had a hard knockout round. So, but the one thing is, obviously, they're not playing at the Bernabeu, which they're very strong at. We're very strong at Anfield. So, neutral venue. You just hope that Liverpool turn up, because I don't feel like we really turned up against Tottenham. It was kind of a really bland affair. I don't really think either team turned up on that day, and we just kind of edged them out. We were always comfortable, but yeah, so it is going to be tight. I was just wondering if you know of any of the Real Madrid team news. Obviously, we have out Fabinho at the moment. We've had out Fabinho, Van Dijk, etc. You'd expect them to come back in because they've both trained since then. Obviously, you said that Thiago is a doubt. Do you know anything of the Real Madrid?
Yeah, so the only one that was a doubt was Marcelo, but Marcelo's not even been playing. Do you know what I mean? The rest of them are all, he's got a fully fit squad to pick from, even Bale and Eden Hazard, but I don't even think them two getting a goal at the moment. They're only on the bench.
You'd probably pull out an overhead kick again anyway.
I know, just to leave or some shit, yeah. But no, I think, that's the only one. So fully fit squad for Real Madrid. Obviously, for us, we're just hoping and praying Thiago makes it. And I think there was rumours he was going to do a bit of training today. So if you can do that, give him his chance. And then even if he's at 89%, I'd be playing him. You know what I mean? So that'd be that. Yeah. So Thiago's the one for me. I think obviously he's down, but I think you can sort of see how upset he was when he went off at the cup final as well. But back to Real Madrid, Marcelo's the only one that's a doubt.
We generally don't like doing predictions for big games, and we're not going to change that because I think we're very superstitious people. But I just want to just your thoughts on how you think the game will play out.
Really, I mean, it's a good question because I think I'd expect us to dominate, and then it's just being wary of Vinicius's pace, and if he plays Rodrigo on the other side. It'll be both them, but I'd imagine it'll go Valverde on the other side. I think as long as Van Dijk plays, I think we'll be okay. And I'd go with Konate as well. But then I think when Real Madrid expect him to defend deep, it's the combination of the three that they play in the middle. I'd imagine it's more than likely it's going to be Kroos, Modric, and Casemiro. But it's how much we can get in and around them, and if we can put enough pressure on them. Because remember last time we played them, we tried pressing, but we couldn't really get close because they played around us. So it's important to get that part of the game right and not overpress in bad places. Because if they get past our midfield and then they're playing the ball and they're the dangerous plays, I think that could be an issue. But then by the flip side as well, I think Luis Diaz could be the one where he just absolutely takes over, you know what I mean, and absolutely changes. And I think we could do more Salah as well, putting in a performance for us.
Do you think there's any doubt of the front three, or do you think this is an established front three now where there's
I think anyway. I think Liverpool got a big game. It's Salah, Mane, and Diaz in it now. That's the sort of chosen front three. I think what the midfield, obviously Henderson, Fabinho, Thiago. If Thiago's fit, Thiago's not fit, and imagine Keita. And then I think the back five are going to pick itself. The only question is whether it's Konate or Matip. I'd go Konate for the pace against Vinicius. But I think having Van Dijk back helps a lot as well. You might have noticed in the last two games when he didn't play, we don't have that switch from Van Dijk out to Salah to the right or even the other side. We Matip more like drives into midfield by dribbling. Konate doesn't really have either. Do you know what I mean? Yeah. So it's like giving us another way to play. I think it's little things like you notice when he doesn't play that. You can, as a team, opposition team, you can cut that off and you can sort of leave because the other midfield centre halves can't do it. So I think him coming back makes a huge difference.
Obviously, their biggest strength is the midfield. Obviously, Kroos, Modric, and Casemiro. And I thought Man City done a very good job of nullifying Kroos and Modric. So I think we'll take a lot of confidence, analysing that game specifically. Say Thiago is out, which I expect him to be out. He might be on the bench. I'd maybe say he might. I think it. Thiago, if he was. If Thiago is out, I don't think he'll start. However, it may be worth a gamble, with the 5 substitutions. If it was 3 substitutions, you probably wouldn't do it. So I think you can afford Fabinho to come in, Thiago to come in, and then you've got your typical substitutions from there. So if in that scenario where Thiago is out, bear in mind, you're going to need energy in there to, keep that constant press up. I think it's a guarantee that Henderson will start. It's a guarantee that Fabinho will start. Who gets the third place for you?
I mean, if Thiago doesn't play, he seems to like Keita. I mean, Keita hasn't impressed me for the duration of time he's been at Liverpool. He might have the odd good game. I don't see them loving for him, and it's all these Twitter fanboys. I mean, it's fine. I trust Klopp to the absolute hilt, but I mean, I think there's an argument to be made for Curtis Jones or even Harvey Elliott as well. But it's what Harvey Elliott generally plays on the right, and Henderson will be playing there, so it's like you're changing too much of the team. So I'd imagine Curtis Jones, but I think if you're asking me now, it's a straight flip between Thiago or Keita, because Keita's been playing majority of the games.
Not a shot for Milner.
Potentially, I think that's been talked about as well. Just for that, but I'd expect him to come on late in the game if they're winning. Do you know what I mean? As opposed to starting.
My worry is with Keita is never necessarily his attacking ability. He has that ability, unlike a lot of our midfielders, to dribble at defenders. He hasn't got really much of a skill, but he does like to drive. It's his defensive and his heart more than anything else, and I think you need both of those things in a Champions League final. But in wrapping up, obviously we like to do a question of the day, and I have got the question of the day today. I've been hearing a lot of supporters talking about Liverpool's quadruple, then reduced to a treble, and how now all of a sudden it's not a real treble. When in fact that's a complete and utter bullshit. But I just want to know your thoughts, and obviously the viewers' thoughts. My question of the day is: how does this treble, i.e. the domestic treble, so you've got domestic double, you've got Carabao Cup, FA Cup, and then you've got Champions League. How does that compare to what people consider the actual treble, which is the same two domestic trophies and the Premier League? How do you think that compares?
The thing with the Champions League is it's where the elite of the elite play. It's the toughest competition to win because you play the best teams over a long period of time. So you've got to play, obviously, group stages generally get through, but then it's knockouts, 3 knockout games against 3 of the top 10 teams in the world. And it's home and away, obviously, and it's the 6 games that you've got to get through. So the margins are really, really small. In the Premier League, you can sort of put your reserve team like we did against Southampton and win games, you know what I mean? You couldn't do that, say, against Real Madrid in the first leg or, you know, whatever it might be. And there's a certain mystique about the Champions League, which certain clubs haven't got and can't get. You can throw all the money in the world, you want it. Unfortunately, Champions League is the one competition where money, you can't actually buy it. You've got to have, you get, so PSG are the example. There's obviously Man City, but PSG, the example, they've thrown all the money in the world at it. And they've got a front three who are unbelievable, probably the best front three in the world if you look at them individually. When you get them into the Champions League knockout stages, you cannot defend with 8 players, because those 3 do not give a flying fuck about defending.
Yeah.
You cannot play with 8 players out of possession in elite level football, and this is elite of the elite. Do you know what I mean? Man City have got most of that right, but Man City, they're just missing that little bit of, I don't know what it is. Some people say character, mentality. I don't know. You can't really label that at them, but they've still got to win it. So until you win a Champions League, you are not a great club. You know, that's when you become a great club and you're regarded part of European royalty. You know what I mean? You're there with the elite.
Yeah, you're renowned across Europe.
Yeah. And I just think it's that, you know, and people are thinking it's like, you know, it's a deflection tactic, and you know, it's a really weak argument. But unfortunately, it's true, and it's just the way football is seen by vast majority of people, especially those in, you know, in the know-how. So I think for me, Champions League. But I mean, obviously, people could say I'm biased. I'm a Liverpool fan. But you know, so
it's definitely on a level, isn't it?
Yeah, but if you ask me, and if you go back to the Fergie tried for so many years to win the Champions League. He knew that was a holy grail. Premier League was quite easy for him. Do you know what I mean? When he won the Champions League, he was like, yeah. Then everyone sort of thought, yeah, this is a proper team now. You know what I mean? I think it was all right. You're all right at home, you're domestic, and you know you got domestic dominance. But you look across Europe, people don't appreciate how good you are until you win a Champions League or get to. Do you know what I mean? So I think it's not just what we see here in this country; it's what you see across Europe and the world.
Yeah, I just thought I'd ask your opinion because, you know, in summary, like I'm going to quickly finish this up. You know, Liverpool have obviously won the domestic trophies. They've got, I think, 91, 92 points in the Premier League. And, you know, should they win the Champions League? For me, that is up there with the 98, 99 Manchester United treble winning season, because that team won the league, I believe, with 78 points. You know, Liverpool, it's all my aunt. If my aunt was my uncle and all that kind of stuff. But as seasons go down, this
would be
has
the
to be
greatest season in living memory for me if Liverpool win the Champions League. The fact they won that, the fact they've got 1 point just off the Premier League, they were 5 minutes away from Aston Villa and an absolute collapse. Do you know what I mean? So there's all that sort of thing. It's just you play every single game with the amount of resource that Klopp and Liverpool have got, again, who they're up against as well. I just think it's absolutely phenomenal. And if you take into consideration the season they had before as well. I know they had like 6 defenders out and 6 centre-halves out, but still, from there to go to there, I just think, it's, almost like regardless of what happens, it's one of those seasons that goes down in living memory. But confident for Saturday, and let's just bag it and we can celebrate.
Yeah, so if you don't remember what the question was, it was how does the Premier League treble compare to the Champions League treble? Put your answers down below. We obviously always reply to all of your comments. And if you made it this far, again, we want to thank you. You are a loyal viewer. Give us a like and also subscribe while you're there. It's been great having you listen to the podcast. Is there anything that you want to talk about before you leave, Ty?
No, let's just hope and pray, and we know we will. Liverpool get the big ears. They call it the big ears, that big Champions League trophy. Get the big ear, get the hands in the big ears, and get it back to Anfield. And I think that'll be a perfect remedy for missing out on the Premier League title by a point.
Yeah, perfect way to finish. Right, guys. Thanks for watching. See you later, guys.
See you guys. Bye.